You guys should have gotten the DeAndre Houston Carson update. He was limited. His back flared up a little bit. We'll see how that feels going into tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll open it up for questions.
What are the biggest challenges the Vikings defense presents?
Well, I think they're pretty good, front to back. I think they present some problems up front. They've got some good-sized guys inside playing nose and three technique. Both ends, they've got a pretty good core guys that they wave through there, but their starters are pretty good. I think 97 got us once last game. I think their second-level linebackers are good, athletic. They've been together for a minute, so they're pretty sound. They're not real exotic, but they are very sound in what they do. They got a guy that probably should have been in the Pro Bowl, free safety, and then they got a good corner crew that they've invested a lot of high picks in.
What stood out to you for Case Keenum, and had you looked at him in the offseason as a consideration here at all?
Yeah, I think he was a starting quarterback a couple of years ago when I was with Denver and we went to St. Louis. So, I've seen him bang around the league. He came in our game, first game here at Soldier, after Bradford went out. I think he adds a dimension that maybe they didn't have, and that he is mobile. They move the pocket with him quite a bit. And, I think their skilled people have come on. I think they're in the top 5 to 10 in receptions and yardage, both Thielen and Diggs. Their tight end's a gifted receiver. So he's got some weapons, as well as he's played good within their system.
John, has Kyle Fuller's consistency surprised you this year?
No, not really. I saw him our first year here. I thought, he was a solid, good young player. We had him into Denver when we were going through the draft process. I was impressed with him, as a guy. I thought he'd have fit pretty well. Then last year was, disappointing for everybody. I think wasn't one of our strongest areas of our football team, and with him out made it, even worse. I don't think he played a snap of the regular season a year ago. But I think it's a tribute to him, our training staff, really basically him, how hard he's worked this offseason, and, now you're starting to see the benefits of that.
When you brought Vic in 3 years ago, did you know him at all?
Yeah, you don't spend 30 years in this league, not knowing most people, especially when they've been around for a while. But, I go all the way back when he was on Jim Moore's staff in New Orleans. He and Dom were together. Dom was Dom Capers I'm referring to. This guy knew we were fellow secondary coaches, and so I got to know him. I got to know Vic through Dom.
People always say that the defense takes on the personality of its coordinator. Do you see that with Vic and what he's built here in the last 4 years?
Yeah, I don't know about all the personality stuff, but I know we've played good and gotten a lot better in the last 3 years.
What do you think stands out about Vic that makes him a good defensive coordinator?
Well, I think he's experienced. He's seen a lot of offenses. You have to grow and change in this league. The game's changed a lot, over that time. From personnel groups to formations to style of play. I think he's done a good job staying up with that. We see no huddle a lot more. It's just become a different game. So you have to evolve in time with that.
Where do you see Eddie Jackson going in the future in terms of what you've seen from him this year and the path he's on?
Like a lot of our young players, Nick Kwiatkowski a year ago, guys that just have kind of grown. I think Eddie's, got a good football acumen, coming through Alabama. Nick, his head coach, was a DB coach for a long time. In fact, another guy I knew way back when is a secondary coach in the NFL. And, you go through 4 years of that system and the techniques, you've got a pretty good feel. And naturally, he's pretty good. He's got good ball skills. As I mentioned, I think when we drafted him, he was a punt returner. Actually, that's how he broke his leg. Whether that affected his draft status or not, I'm not sure. But, he's got good tracking skills, and, he's come up and learned a lot about secondary play.
He's played something like all but 8 snaps or 10 snaps for you. We talked about the rookie wall. Did he at any point hit that?
No, these guys it's been a tremendous rookie class. You know, all of them have been impressive that way. You know, they're a close-knit group. Lamar Campbell, our guy who works with our player development, has done a good job of, kind of getting those guys together, spending a lot of time with them. They have a lot of extra meetings. The NFL mandates a lot of rookie meetings, and that group is bonded. And, they're a pretty close-knit group.
And especially with a guy like Shaheen, in your experience as a coach, have you ever been in a situation where you've seen a guy just kind of lay the foundation and just knew he was going to take off, and then he actually did blossom in the next year? Has that been predictable at all in your coaching experience?
Yeah, I think you identify that fairly quick. I think and Adam would fit that mold. I think you could see early on that he had the skill set physically, but I think what kind of separates guys is mentally, how mentally tough, physically tough they are, and really how they grow. And it takes that kind of grit to improve every day, regardless of what you do.
Is there any example in your career that you can remember where you knew a guy was going to take off and he did? You know what I'm saying? A guy who hadn't shown much. You know what I'm saying? As a younger player, maybe.
I think at some point you have to show something. I think of a whole lot of guys that you could tell early on. I thought Bob Miller was going to be pretty good pretty early in his career, and he had a couple hiccups, but I think he's done pretty well for himself. All right, thank you.
As we get to the end here, where is your sense of accomplishment lie?
It's a pretty wide question. I'd say that there's been more games than not where we've played above average to good. I think there's some games, some plays we'd like to have back. Individually, with players, there's you like to see them pointed in the right direction, headed trending upwards at the end of the season. But it's a tough question because there's really 7 different phases that we coach on special teams, and punt protection, for instance, it's there's a protection phase to that and there's a coverage phase to that. So you're really you're getting into a lot of different areas, and we're looking forward to this week, and hopefully that's something that continue.
What do you think the next steps are for Tariq as he grows as a punt returner?
Probably you'd like to see, consistency as far as being able to do it week in and week out and play after play. I think with the ball in his hand, Tariq's been pretty good this year. There's some situational things that, as the season has grown, he's learned, when and where to do things, but he's still going to take some chances because that's kind of in his nature. So we like what he's done. There's some balls that he's kind of let hit on the ground that I think over time he's going to learn. There's some of those he might be able to get to in fair catch, or some of those he might be able to get to and take off with it. But that's going to happen with time and learning, how the guys punt in this league and being in those environments more often.
What's your assessment of one who had to roll on Sunday and then dove on to keep going?
Yeah, gosh, that's first off, that's an unselfish play for him. I hate saying this, but there's plenty of punt returners in this league who aren't going to do that simply because that's a 0-yard return, and that's going to knock your average down. Tariq is an unselfish player in that regard. That's not what he's thinking about. He's thinking about maximizing field position for the offense, and he had a little bit of room to do that, it's a dicey play with those conditions because, you know, a misstep or a slip or whatever, that can go the wrong way, but it worked out for him.
One of the highlights of the special teams this year was the fake punt against the Vikings. Do opposing coordinators take it personally? Do you have to be on guard for them to try something tricky, I guess, in that situation?
You're talking about the second time around?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. There's nothing personal about the play. I mean, obviously, we're trying to take advantage of any situation that may come up to us. We lucked out in that phase because, you know, I mean, that's a play again that you've got your punter throwing the ball and they've got their starting defense out there that can get picked and go the other way. So the guys executed that really well. You know, the next time around, you look at 32 coordinators in this league, and most of them have run some type of trick play, misdirection. You know, Minnesota had ran a fake punt against Chicago before I got here that got down to whatever it was, the 2-yard line. You know, you're just trying to take advantage of situations that present themselves, and sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. In our case for that game, it did work out.
Jeff, you go back quite a ways with John. How do you think he's handled this year, which hasn't always been pleasant in terms of results?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an evaluation on the head coach's, you know, demeanor. You know, he's the same guy every day, and he's the same guy in the off season as in season, and he's really consistent in that regard. You know what you're going to get out of him. You know, game day can be interesting at times, but that's the case with all head coaches because there's a lot of things going on game day. But you know, he's always been the same person to me since the first time that I met him, and yeah, I mean, I've worked for him for 9 years now. Really consistent. Well, you know, when you're the head coach, I mean, I've been in charge of, you know, 10 to 12 different areas, right? Well, he's in charge of all those areas too. He's in charge of the offense, the defense, the guys protecting the quarterback, the guys he's throwing to the court. I mean, there's so many things going on there that, you know, as a head coach, I don't think you have time to explain yourself. You know, as assistant coaches, I would assume most people take it this way. I don't take anything the head coach says as a suggestion. You know, when he's telling us to do something or whatever, there's a reason why, and, you know, he doesn't need to explain himself. We're just trying to get that stuff done. And when I say interesting, those decisions happen, you know, that fast. So, you know, there's just a lot of information in a short amount of time. We got to execute it.
How was the focus for the guys you're working with been this week? You know, the season's going to end without postseason. There's uncertainty after that. How would you say the players have been in terms of, you know, their preparation so far?
I think they've been great. No different than a lot of other weeks. You know, you get into early in the week, and the first thing is, you know, usually, okay, here's the game plan. They're kind of soaking it all in, and by midweek, end of the week, they're starting to give you feedback. You know, Coach, what do you think about my technique on this one? Can I do this or do that? Or you know, yesterday in practice, you know, it didn't look like it did in the game. Was that a look that you were trying to give us, or they just kind of screwed that up in terms of the scout team? So I've gotten a bunch of that feedback today, and we'll continue to work through that. But the guys have been awesome.
From being until now, was there a player or two that's been a pleasant surprise for you this season in the growth that they've made?
DHC's probably been the guy who's played considerably better this year than he did a year ago, and having him healthy is probably the thing that's led to that. You know, Deion Bush, I think, has played better than he did a year ago. You know, the health thing comes into his deal as well. You know, I don't know that there's anybody that's had a diminished performance. Just some guys who weren't major contributors a year ago who were with us have done that this year. He's an aggressive player, and you know, he's got no fear. He's been a good tackler for the most part this season. I think his angles in terms of his blocking and stuff. I mean, he's just, you know, it takes a minute to kind of catch up, and the more that he's played, the better he's done. He had a good tackle last week to, you know, that first kickoff. You know, kind of miss hit in the field conditions, and you know, it's an open space play with nobody else around him, and he gets the guy down, and you know, that's shown up several times this year.
How far as special teams come, do you think? You know, we talked like Vic and Jen about the defense, how that was kind of built from rubble to what it is now. From where you started to where you are now, how could you feel about what foundation or whatever you laid here as far as the progress you made in special teams?
There's not a lot of guys who are in that locker room who were here when we first got here, and that's a lot of turnover. That first season, you know, there were some guys in the locker room in week 5 who weren't there in week 3. I mean, it was constant churning the roster, and you know, spent some draft picks on, you know, on some guys that have started to come on. Obviously, the returner is a new player. You know, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think how many guys were here when we first got here, and you know, Sherrick and Pat, you know, stand out. Christian Jones, Josh Bellamy, who's, you know, role in special teams has kind of diminished the more he's played on offense. But there's a handful of guys, and we feel decent about, you know, as using your word, the foundation that they've laid. But you know, when it comes to 4th down in this league, it's always going to be like that. You're always going to have roster turnover, and just got to be ready for it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Yep. How you doing? Okay, who's first?
What kind of job is Shermer done over there? I mean, with the backup quarterback and the backup running back to have the offense?
I think he's done a great job. Their offense is playing at a highest level I've seen it play at since I've been here. You know, I think the quarterback's been the major difference there. They've had a great defense last year. They still got a great defense. I think the biggest difference is their quarterback play, and this guy's really played well.
What jumps out to you about what Case has done?
He's a creator. You know, he moves around within the pocket. He moves around outside the pocket. He's done a good job running their rhythm passing game also. You know, I just think he's done a really good job running this offense. And when the first option in there, he has a knack of turning into a positive play.
What do you like about how Kwiatkowski's played in the last couple of weeks?
I thought he played well the other day. He tackled pretty good. I think he's feeling more comfortable playing more and more. I thought he played with a little bit more confidence and, you know, a little faster than he had been as far as decision making and recognizing things. So I think he's improving.
Is it tough for him to, you know, come back with that pec injury earlier in the year to kind of get going faster?
I think so, from two perspectives. One, you know, I don't think he was sure what he could do with it. You know, so anytime you're a little nervous about the way your body's functioning, I think that gets into your head a little bit. And also the layoff time that he had, you know, put him back a little bit.
Like a year ago, we were talking about measuring desire when it came to Kyle Fuller and dealing with his injury. And to put together the season he did this year, what does that say about him? What have you learned about him through that?
Well, I think he's come back with more purpose. He's been very mature the whole year with his work ethic and habits. And, you know, I think he had a mindset to go out and play better than he had in 15, because you can't compare it to 16. And I think he's achieved that. You know, I just think he's been a better frame of mind, more competitive, and more, I think his football he knows what he wants, and he's got it narrowed down.
For a roster that's had so much personnel turnover, is it incredibly valuable then to keep guys like that who put that kind of together on their own?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you always You want to keep as many of your own guys as you can because there's carryover, but that isn't always possible. So, you know, that's between Kyle and the management.
What were you most impressive about his day on Sunday?
He didn't let the conditions affect him at all. Did a good job keeping his feet under him, being aware that the conditions did have an effect on the game and not letting it affect his game, nor his mindset and everything he prepared for all week. You know, so the conditions didn't get to him at all, physically or mentally.
The one-on-one time you spent with him in the off season, how much did that kind of lay the foundation for maybe his resurgence this year? I
don't know. You'd have to ask him. I know he didn't enjoy getting beat in golf, but I only bring that up because he said it publicly first. So I don't know. I mean, you'd have to ask Kyle.
How would you characterize Eddie Jackson's growth through the first year, and what does the future hold for him?
I think he's got a bright future. I think he sees the game well. The game's not too big for him. Processes things really well, which is very, very important for safeties and, you know, inside linebackers. How well you process things, react to things, recognize things. And then when he does that, he's got ball skills to make it pay off. So I think his future's bright.
From the time you started to cry, and especially in defense, players need playmakers. End of year 3, do you feel like you have enough playmakers, and can you identify maybe some areas for growth where you could develop playmakers, or maybe they are on this roster where they maybe don't see it as much now?
Well, I think the first and foremost way you try to improve is get your own players better. So the ones that come back, we have to improve them. You know, and then it's up to management to see if there's guys out there that can fill that bill of maybe uplifting the defense to another level. So, you know, that will be, you know, February, March, April.
Do you worry about what might happen on Monday?
Do I?
Yeah.
No.
Why not?
I just don't.
When you're in this business as long as you've been in it, is it easy to compartmentalize it into?
Yeah, my whole focus this week is on the game Sunday, and I know that sounds like a packaged answer, but it really is. And then we'll deal with next week when we need to deal with it. And I do think experience and longevity helps me do that versus some younger coaches.
Adam Thielen's been productive for them for most of the season. What jumps out to you on Bateman, specifically with his route running ability and the way he sets them up?
He's a football player. I mean, this guy just knows how to play the game. You know, he's one of those guys when he was growing up, I bet he was one of the first guys picked in the Sandlot games. You know, he just knows how to play the game. He's quick. He's instinctive. He's very, very competitive. He's been a punt returner in his career, so that tells you about his athletic ability and run after the catch ability. And he's a tough guy. He's our guy. Our players voted for him for the Pro Bowl when that voting happened last week or whenever it was.
Back to Keenum. Last time you saw him, obviously he came off the bench at halftime. When you see a player who's able to do that and be as accurate as he was, avoid pressure, do all those things, that, you know, he'd only had a handful of starts at that point. What did that tell you about his?
Well, he had been playing the previous games, and he's like Thielen. This guy's just a football player, you know. He's another guy that got picked early in the Sandlot games, and he just feels the game very well. Got great pocket presence. He's a creator, you know, on the run. You know, he'll lob a ball like you think you'd only see Russ and Wilson do on the run, and this guy does it too. But he's an accurate passer too, so I've been very impressed with him.
What's your perspective on Mike Zimmer? The job he's done there, what he's done in his career?
He's done a great job. You know, Mike's been a coordinator in the league for a while. Finally got his opportunity. Was qualified and capable, and you know, Minnesota recognized that and didn't worry about where he came from or what his playoff success had been, et cetera. They just knew they were getting a good football coach, and ultimately that's what you want in your head coach, a leader and a good football coach. And Mike's been that for a long time and has been able to continue that as a head coach.
Leonard Floyd, relative to the games he played, did he take the steps you would hope he would?
He was. I would have liked to see just a tad bit more production, but he was playing good and getting better and enjoying it. So.
How about Goldman? Same question.
Yeah, I like Eddie. Eddie's Eddie's poised. You know, he's played good all year for the most part, and I think he's going to be a good player in this league for a while.
What stands out to you about the season Danny Trevathan said?
Excuse me?
What stands out to you about the season Danny Trevathan said?
I think when he's gotten into his grooves, he's really played well. You know, he didn't have training camp till late, never played in a preseason game. So started a little bit not up to his standards in the first game or two. Then got it rolling, then he got suspended. And then prior to the suspension, he was playing very, very well. And then when he came back, and then he, I don't know, missed 3 or 4 games with the calf injury. When he's been in his groove and practicing and playing consecutive games, he's been a very good player for us.
Back to Leonard for a second. Obviously, availability is so important for him, but in terms of his skill set, what do you think is kind of some of the next things are to work on as he moves forward?
Just a little bit of everything. Just understanding the game a little bit better, understanding angles a little bit better, get a little bit, add a little bit to his pass rush repertoire. He is a versatile player. We haven't really used all of his versatility yet. You know, if we can feel comfortable that it's not overloading him, we can do more things with him from a versatility standpoint. So hopefully he'll get healthy and well quickly and have a productive off season and training camp.
How has Trubisky grown from your point of view as he's practiced? Is the starter the last 12
I think he's grown. I think he's proven the game's not too big for him. I think he's proven he can play the game. He's exhibited talent, which is important, and some quarterback intangibles. So hopefully he'll continue to improve.
Can you tell that when you're watching a quarterback either in person or on film, kind of whether they have it?
Yeah.
When did you figure out that he had it? Was it pretty quick or not?
He's on his way to having it.
Rick, with Adrian Amos, the last 2 years didn't create any turnovers. What do you think's been the difference for him in his playmaking abilities this season?
I think, his third year made a nice improvement from year 2 to 3, got more comfortable. I think he, in working with Eddie Jackson back there, really helped him. They both had a good karma working relationship together, and I think they both fed off each other, and it improved Adrian in that regard, is a big thing.
One more thing back to Mike Zimmer. It took him a long time to get an opportunity. Guys with gray hair don't seem to get those opportunities anymore.
Especially if they're not coaching offense.
Yeah. Do you reflect upon that sometimes? I mean, was that your ultimate dream when you got into this thing?
Well, sure. I mean, it wasn't my ultimate dream. I mean, my ultimate dream when I got into coaching was to be a high school head coach and live happily ever after. And, things happen. But sure, you'd like it. But, I don't take it personal or think I'm any less better or less qualified than anybody else because certain people are looking for certain parameters in their searches. So, but I'm happy for Mike. I know Mike a little bit, and he's a good football coach.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.